Hi everybody, Trevor Evans here. I just want to review a very special form called the FINTRAC Individual Identification Information Record. This is Form 630 on our ARIA forms. This is a form that's required by the Canadian government. Anyone who is privy to a transaction with a real estate agent to have this completed. The real estate agent is the one responsible for completing this. Your client does not need to sign anything on this form, but it is the government of Canada basically looking for any funds being transferred in and out of accounts. And they want to track this to, number one, anything suspicious as far as money laundering. Number one, that's a big one. And then, of course, any terrorist activity that is suspicious. So let's go through this form, and I don't want to dive too deep in here, but I'm definitely going to be hitting the big bullet points here. So as we read through this form, it clearly identifies, as I mentioned, an individual identification information record is required by the Proceeds of Crime, Money Laundering, and Terrorist Financing Act. This record must be completed by a realtor member when they act in respect to the purchase or sale of real estate. It is recommended that the individual identification information record to be completed for a buyer when the offer is submitted and or a deposit is made. This is a big one. The and or clearly suggests if you are depositing, making a deposit, you are required, if that person is doing a deposit of funds, you are required to do Form 630 individual identification information record. And why I'm pointing this out, this was a question many of you had with regards to deposits for tenants that are putting down for to rent. So this, you are required to actually fill this out for tenants making a deposit of funds to that listing brokerage. Clearly states it here. Or number two, for a seller when the seller accepts an offer. So anybody who's privy to the transaction, we're supposed to be filling out this form on that individual. So just kind of the guts of what this form is asking for. Obviously, the address of the transaction that is being considered here, the salesperson, that's you if you're watching, the date in which, of course, it was completed, the full details of the individual. I've just put John Smith here. Obviously, plug in the numbers here, plug in the information, the address here. The date of birth, you will be required to put that in. The nature of the business or occupation, a lot of agents leave this blank, and we come right back to you and say, no, we need to know the role. If it's a teacher, put teacher. If they're retired from teaching, put retired from teaching. Salesperson, software as a service, go ahead, put that. As much detail as you can. You don't have to give their resume. Section A1 is basically one form of identifying the purpose. And I would really say the majority of your transactions, someone's going to have a driver's license, and you can use that government-issued driver's license to actually go through. You can, anything that is, and let's read it, a certain the individual's identity by comparing the individual to their photo ID. So it must be a photo ID. The individual must be physically present unless using technology capable of assessing a government-issued photo identification document's authenticity. Okay, so if you can confirm the authenticity of that document, government-issued photo ID document, you're good. Health card, driver's license, passport, these are common forms, and you must be able to confirm that they are indeed, hey, this is the real deal, okay? Especially if you're doing this, say, through technology, i.e., Zoom meetings, etc. So this is allowed now. There are other forms. I'm not going to go too deep into this because, again, it's not going to hit a lot of people, but there are other ways to confirm someone's identity. The credit file, what is their credit file? Do you have a copy of that? Dual ID process method, having different, I guess, pieces of mail to identify that and having at least two of the following there. And then if the person is unrepresented, whether they're a client or a customer, and a customer meaning they're not being represented, you still must have, if you're handling them as a sales professional, you must complete this form. And you would, as recommended a little further up, if you're using section A4, let's go up to it just to be clear. Complete section A4 and consider sending a suspicious transaction report to FINTRAC if there are any reasonable grounds to suspect the transaction involves the proceeds of the crime or terrorist activity, okay? So this is where you are unable to identify an unrepresented individual. If you just can't identify that person, you're gonna fill out this form here and just fill in the blanks, okay? Verifications of third party, very common question. What is a third party? If John goes to purchase something and John has $10,000 for a deposit and mom and dad have to come in with the additional $10,000, mom and dad are the third party. Okay, they're putting money towards the deposit of that transaction. And I should say specifically for the deposit, mom and dad also could be helping John Smith on the back end with their mortgage. It would be a question that you would ask, is there any other third party helping you out with the purchase of this? Yeah, mom and dad are gonna help me. I might be paying for the deposit here, but they're helping me on the back end. Okay, I just wanna identify that in the in this form here. So note, only complete section B for your clients. Take reasonable measures to determine whether your clients are acting on behalf of third parties by completing this section of the form. If you are not able to determine whether your clients are acting on behalf of the third party, but there's a reasonable grounds to suspect there are, complete section B1 if there is a third party, complete section B2. So B1, third party reasonable measures. Is the transaction being conducted on behalf of a third party? You're going to take reasonable measures. What are reasonable measures? You ask. Is anybody helping you out with this transaction? Yes, no. And then the second section there, describe why you think your client may be acting on behalf if they're suspicious. And I think somebody is there helping them out. You can describe that here in this section. If there is a third party, and let me just back up section B1, the previous form, there was a series of questions, so they've really cleaned this section up. We love this, we love clarity. This is much clearer than the previous form. So thank you, FINTRAC. Third party record, where there is a third party and they've identified it, get all this information here again. You're just plugging in the numbers here of the details of the third party that is involved here. On the third page, is this client, who is this client? Are they Canadian citizen? Are they physically present there? You're just going to appropriately fill out the appropriate box here. And of course, a section if there's any notes there, if there's any suspicion, medium risk, high risk. It can be a little bit subjective to determine, hey, I think this person could be a high risk individual. Fill out the form, but as much detail, as transparent as you can be, is what the government is looking for, okay? Section D, the business relationship. So the purpose, intended nature of the business relationship, just check one of the box. Hey, this person's just purchasing a residential property, or this person's purchasing a residential property for income purposes. They want to know, is it commercial, is it land, commercial property, etc. Okay, and the last section here, measures taken to monitor business relationship and client information up to date. Ask the client if their name, address, and principal business or occupation has changed, and if it has included the updated information on the page. Keep relevant correspondence with the client on file, etc. I'll let you guys read that, but this is pretty self-explanatory here, and these are just interesting notes that they've kind of detailed at the bottom. Don't forget, if you see something suspicious during the transaction, report it to your compliance officer. Every real estate office has a FINTRAC compliance officer in that office. If you don't know who your compliance officer is, reach out to your manager and they will identify that individual to you. Consult your policies and procedures manual for more information. At Century 21, we have complete policies and procedures for all of our agents, both in hard copy and soft copy as they are onboarded. And of course, the last section, terrorist property reports. Don't forget to follow your brokerage's procedures with respect to any terrorist property reports. Consult your policies and procedures and manual. If ever in doubt, speak to your manager. If ever in doubt, speak to your FINTRAC compliance officer. Hopefully this was an exciting video for you to watch and listen to. Any questions, feel free to reach out to me or your manager in your office. Have a great day.